Have you ever heard this saying? A teacher should be a guide on the side rather than a sage on the stage. If you've attended a faculty of education, you've probably heard it many times. But what does it mean? Basically, it says that teachers should spend less time in front of the classroom talking and more time on the side letting students figure out things for themselves. This perspective, known as constructivism, argues that students should create their own understanding of the world around them, and that direct instruction of basic skills should be kept to an absolute minimum. This is certainly what many education gurus like Alfie Kohn argue. In his book, The Schools Our Children Deserve, Kohn says parents should be worried if the chairs in their kids' classrooms face the front where the teacher is located. Apparently, this type of setup is a problem for Kohn because it sends a message that the teacher is the source of knowledge in the classroom. Now, let's think about this for a second. Alfie Kohn gives dozens of presentations to teacher groups every year. When he gives these presentations, how are the teachers seated? You've probably already guessed. The audience is facing him, and hardly anyone is sitting in groups talking to each other. You see, even when speakers like Alfie Kohn are arguing against the old-fashioned methods like direct instruction, the audience is almost always sitting in rows, facing the speaker who is standing on a stage. If Kohn really believed that the teacher shouldn't be a sage on the stage, he'd stop giving lectures and would simply let teachers come up with their own ideas about effective instruction. He doesn't do that, however, because he knows that a lecture is the most efficient way to get his ideas across. The reality is that direct instruction is an essential component of good teaching and should take place in our schools. John Hattie is director of the Melbourne Education Research Institute and one of the world's leading experts on student achievement. In his book, Visible Learning, Hattie analyzes the results of thousands of research studies and concludes that direct instruction is more effective than constructivist approaches. In his own words, Hattie states, "The role of the constructivist teacher is claimed to be more facilitation to provide opportunities for individual students to acquire knowledge and construct meaning through their own activities. These kinds of statements are almost directly opposite to the successful recipe for teaching and learning." You see, that's what the research actually shows. Direct instruction is good teaching, and teachers have nothing to be ashamed of when they take charge of their classrooms. One area in which teachers should take a more active role is in requiring students to develop their skills through practice. While progressive educators deride practice and repetition as drill and kill, Hattie argues that deliberate practice is an essential part of learning. He cites a number of research studies that demonstrate the importance of many hours of practice in order to develop expertise. Hattie even goes so far as to say that in some cases learning, quote, is simply doing some things many times over, end quote. Of course, in order for teachers to provide direct instruction, they need to have a solid understanding of the subject being taught. A chemistry teacher who walks into a classroom of grade 12 students should be the most knowledgeable person about chemistry in the room. If he isn't, then someone else should be teaching the class. And yet, education professors often claim that subject matter knowledge isn't that important. Some even argue that it's actually a good thing if a math teacher doesn't understand math that well, because then she can learn together with her students and authentic teaching takes place. That type of thinking is absolutely ridiculous, but it's the type of nonsense often spouted in faculties of education. So the next time you see a teacher confidently standing in front of his students giving a lecture, be glad that some direct instruction is taking place. Teachers have every right to be experts in their classrooms. Suppose you aren't happy with your neighborhood grocery store down the street. Prices are too high, the food isn't fresh, and the service is mediocre. What do you do? If you are like most people, you'd probably just shop somewhere else. After all, there's lots of other grocery stores to choose from. Do you wear eyeglasses? Many of you probably do. Even if you don't, chances are that someone in your family does. As for me, well, I've been wearing glasses for well over 20 years, so it's something that I've definitely gotten used to. When you think about it, glasses really are a remarkable invention.